Coming to you live from the shadow of the big house, it's IT4U. Tips and tricks on ITS tools, products, services, and more with your host, Jean Mackey. Hey, good morning everybody, and welcome to IT4U. I'm your host, Jean Mackey. These are interactive webinars brought to you by ITS, and if you're having any audio or video problems during this live webinar, tell us in the chat pod, and if it's not on our end, we'll have some tips for you. You'll notice down at the bottom I've got a pod that says select link, and it says today's presentation. So if you click that, and then the browse to button underneath that will light up, and you can actually follow along with the presentation. We had a poll going on in the lobby there, but we're going to bring it up one more time. We are doing closed captioned YouTube versions of the recordings of this, which is also nice for those of you who want to watch it on your mobile device. And so the links will be in the description, because the links are live in this this flash recording. If you want to participate mobily, there's some links. Coming up November 11th, we're bringing Britton Woodman back because he did a really nice job on Qualtrics back in February, so we asked him to do part 2 sort of at an introductory level. So here's a link where you can register in my link. And if you need accommodation to participate, just let us know. Today we are focusing on working with M+Box folders. The presenters are Chris Mueller and MaryBeth Stuenkel. But I want to bring that poll back up just to give you, make sure everybody has a chance, because in addition to the general topics, Chris and MaryBeth are going to have some specific scenarios, and they'd like to know which ones interest you the most, because they're not going to have time to do all of them. Cool. Looks like number 4 is ahead. Number 4, oh, number 1. Number 1 moving up there. Number 4 still ahead. Give you another minute.
And can I add that the presentation contains all the scenarios, and there are notes for each slide. So if you download the presentation, you'll be able to see the scenarios and go over the ones that we don't get to.
And Lisa would like to know, what the heck is offboarding? Isn't that about when somebody leaves? When somebody leaves your organization?
Right.
Okay, and they'll give you more detail about that. Good question, Lisa. All right. I think looks like we've all had a chance to weigh in. Great. Number 4, number 1 on the top. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to MaryBeth.
So, welcome. We're really happy to be talking to you today. And before we start with the scenarios, we're going to give you just some general information about box folders. There's some interesting things that it took me a long time to kind of catch on to, and so I want to give you the benefit of my year plus working with Box and show you some of the things that I've learned. So one of the things to remember with Box is that folders really are the center of the Box universe. So Box in Google, there are things you can do with files that you have to do at the folder level with Box. This throws people sometimes, often because they're more familiar with Google than they are with Box, and so they expect Box to work the way Google does. But there's a lot that to be said for Box's orientation to the folder, because it keeps things pretty well organized for you. But keep in mind, the folder is really the place that most of the action happens in Box. So to start to familiarize you with the folders, here's a screenshot of several folders in my account. And there's a couple of things that show you information. There's the color and graphics of the folder tell you a lot about the folder. And then next to the folder name is additional information about the folder. So if we go through from top to bottom, the top folder is one that's a personal folder, that it's just me, that only I have access to this folder. And the little circle with the sync icon in it shows that I am syncing this folder to my desktop. The next one down, this actually happens to be a shared account, and it shows that I am a co-owner of that shared account, and it's blue. So it's blue with a couple little people in it, and that's pretty obvious that the people mean that it's shared. But what does blue mean? Blue means that it's actually shared by someone within the University of Michigan. So if you're concerned about where you're putting your data and making sure it stays in the University of Michigan, that blue color is a good indicator. As opposed to the next one down, which is a shared folder, but it's gray. So with the gray folder, it means it's shared with you by someone outside of the University of Michigan. In this case, it shows you that it's shared by someone at Clemson University. If it's shared by a free account, it'll just say externally owned. But if it's shared by an enterprise like ours, then it will actually identify the name of the enterprise that it's shared from. And then finally, the last one is one that's shared from within the University of Michigan, but I don't have any elevated rights. I just have editor or viewer or some other kind of rights there, so it doesn't list me as a owner or co-owner. Owner and co-owner are the only types of permissions that it will explicitly say on this display. So another thing to think about folders, one of the complaints that people get, or that we hear from people, is why can't I organize all my folders into a hierarchy? Like, for example, here I have a whole bunch of folders starting with the word box. Not surprising, since I do a lot with box. I manage box. But why can't I just put them all inside of folders and then make them subfolders of one called box? Well, each folder represents a different set of relationships. So for example, this folder here called Box Admins, I can see over here that there are 4 collaborators in this folder, me and 3 others. And these are different collaborators than in this folder. Here there's 29 files and 5 collaborators, so 4 other collaborators. So it really is, every one of these box folders, even though they're around the topic of box, are a different set of relationships with different people for different purposes. And so if you think about it that way, then the idea that the folders are not arranged in a hierarchy starts to make a little more sense for you. Oops, that doesn't work. There we go. So the next thing to think about is the levels of permissions and shared links. So Box, unlike Google, which sort of presents them in one interface, Box separates out the idea of what permissions people have and how the links to these folders can be shared. And in this case, shared links also apply to files, whereas permissions are only applied at the folder level. So you can't set different permissions on a file than you have on the folder that the file is in. The file will get the permissions of the folder it's inside. And here's the list of permissions, and it's a pretty good list of permissions. It's more than just a couple, but not so many that you just feel overwhelmed, I think. So the one big difference between co-owner and editor, when it says owner permissions, this is things like setting security settings on a folder, inviting other co-owners or kicking other co-owners out can only be done by a co-owner or an owner. But other than that, the editor has pretty much the ability to do what they need to do within the folder. And any questions on this so far? Any questions about the permissions or the whole relationship idea? So we have people standing by with questions. There's one in.
What does get link mean?
So get link means the ability to create and get a shared link to a folder. So you want to give someone a web link so that they can just click on it and go right to the folder or file. That's what get link does. It gives you the ability to create that link to distribute it to others. Okay, and then now moving on from this, the shared links aspect of it, this is the link that is referred to in the get link permission, is in there, and when you select and we'll show this later on, when we select a file or folder to get a link on, you will have these choices. You can share the link. By default, it's with people in this folder only. So by default, it's the most secure setting. The link will only work if you're a collaborator in the folder. But you can also set the link to be available to anyone in your company, which means someone would have to sign in to M+Box and then they'd be able to access this. Or anyone with the link. You don't even need a Box account. The link just takes you directly to the file or folder. And then the gear icon, once you select this, takes you to a settings screen. And here are the share settings. You can set a custom URL. As you see, the link that Box provides is a pretty random, long, ugly link. But by saying set custom URL, you will be able to see that you can create something that makes more sense and that's easier for people to type. Require password. If you're sharing it openly, as this one is, anyone with the link, you can actually add a password to it. So even though they don't have to log in to Box, they have to provide the password you give them. You can set a link to expire. You may want to give someone access to something only for a short period of time. So you can make that link expire after a period of time, and after that period of time, the link will give them a access denied type message. And then finally, allow downloading is set to be yes by default, but you can prevent someone from downloading by setting this to, by clicking on this and setting it to no. Or actually what you'll be doing is clicking a checkbox. That's a way to ensure that the people who are following your link always have access to the most recent version of the file. They can't download it and then look at something that you've since made changes to because they can't download it. They can only get it through the web. There's one more permission on here that's not shown because it's only on files, and it's called direct link. And what direct link is, it just downloads it immediately. So that's an additional one that's available for files. So finally, on folders, a couple of things that's important to remember. The quotas in Box are based on the folder owner, not the person who created the file. So if you make a folder available to someone with the permissions that allow them to create files in there, and someone else creates a big file in there, that counts against your permissions, not the person who created the file. Well, one thing that really allows us to do is allows us to provide shared accounts, which are 200 gigabytes by default, but can be up to 500 gigabytes by request. And it means that if people are putting files in a shared account, it's not counting against their or your quota. It's counting against a shared account quota, which is pretty generous. So and this is another difference between Box and Google, where with Google, a file is counted against the quota of the person. The owner is the person who created it, and that's who it counts against. So and then the last don't forget item is that you can choose folders or subfolders to sync. So if you have a big folder hierarchy and you want to make some files available to yourself on your desktop in an offline mode, but you don't need everything in the folder, you can actually sync just the one subfolder that you're interested in having offline. So you do that. You cannot sync individual files. You have to sync at the folder level. So with that, we're going to go to the scenarios, and with each of these scenarios we have this sort of standard template of thinking about who do you need to work with. So how do you need to set permissions in that way? What files do they need to work with? What do they need to do with it? And what do you want people not to be able to do with the content that you're sharing in Box? So for each of these scenarios, we'll go through that who, what, do not do kind of process, and to help you understand how you would set up Box for use in these different scenarios. So it looks like, yep, we've got the most highly voted scenarios were email replacement and shared Box accounts. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to walk you through some of the scenarios.
Hello, everyone. So we'll start with scenario 1, email attachment replacement. That's one of the two that you voted up. So the description of what's going on is that you've been collaborating on some files with a couple of teammates, and now you want to share that file more widely, and you're still making changes. So you want to make sure that people who are looking at it, anyone who has access, is going to see the latest version. So we have the who is our teammates and the people on campus, the two audiences for this. The type of materials are the working documents that are internal to the team, and the final report that we're sharing with everyone. We want teammates to be able to edit documents, and we want the campus to view the most recent version of whatever we came up with. And what we don't want is for the recipients to download or edit the report. And especially if we're making changes, we don't want them to download a static copy and then we corrected something and now they have an error in their version that's not represented by the fix that we did. So when we're looking at a folder, it's kind of hard to see, okay. When we click, well, actually, the one thing I wanted to cover before going into this too far, so why don't we use email attachments? Why are we replacing email attachments? So one of the reasons is that if the file is actually too large to be able to be sent through our email system, that would be one thing. You could send a link for a very large file using Box. You can't send an actual very large file through our email system. The other thing is, when people used to be doing most of their editing in places like Microsoft Word and then they attach it, or Excel or whatever, and they attach it, you constantly are sending out new emails with new versions of the files. Those emails get forwarded on to other people, and what you end up with is dozens of versions on everyone's machine, and there's no consistent one version. It's very hard to keep version control when there's all these copies going out in email. So that's one of the things you try to prevent if you use something like Box, where you're using a link to the actual one as opposed to sending out all these copies that keep proliferating. So how do we do that? So when we click on Share, you can see that there's a link here, kind of a messy looking link, but there is a way to clean it up that we'll get to in a moment. And as MaryBeth mentioned earlier when she was talking about sharing, we have ways of determining how that link can be used. So anyone with the link, so it's completely open, so obviously that would not be something confidential. People within U of M for things that can be widely distributed, but not the whole world. Or people in this folder. And people in this folder, those are just collaborators. So you wouldn't normally use that as a way of distributing it necessarily because they're collaborators, but it does give you a link that makes it easy to jump to the document. So for example, so let's say you had an agenda for a meeting, you could put the link in so it's easy for people to jump over to it. So that's one of the reasons you would use people in this folder. But usually if you're sharing to others, it's anyone with this link or people within. All right, and so then if we click on Settings, we have a couple of options. So here's where we can adjust the link. It was that long, messy thing, but we can change it to Demo Report down here, and then we can see up here that the full link to it now looks nicer. It doesn't have that random characters at the end. Here's where the access is still right there. Allow downloading is set to no in this case, so they can look at it. Oh yes, over here. Here's where allow downloading, there's the checkbox that MaryBeth mentioned. So you can control whether someone with the link is able to download the actual file. Now, once you've shared a link like this, you can go to you right click on the file and you get a menu like this and go to Properties and then you go to Access Stats. And that's kind of another kind of neat thing about doing this by a link. Because then, under what comes up next is a list that shows you the last 50 people that access this thing by that single link. So everyone's coming in by the same place. Yes, go ahead with the question.
Bob wants to know what happens when someone else has used the link name that you asked for.
The name has to be unique. So when you try to do it, it won't work if someone else has used the exact same name. So when you're looking at it, you have the list of the last 50 people. If they were logged in, you see their name. If they were not logged in, you see the approximate location where they were when they accessed it. But beyond the 50 people, let's say this is a document that's really widely distributed, you also get summary information down below. How many people have previewed it, how many people have downloaded it, if that was allowed. And then also the numbers excluding the owner, because the owner tends to open this thing a lot. So the number of who viewed it, not the owner, is kind of the one you're usually very interested in. And let's see, I believe that's it for this one. All right, so now we've distributed the link and we have a version out there. And now we're going to continue editing. So we right-click on it. This happens to be a Word document. It's docx. So we're going to right-click. We're going to start editing it. I'm one of the team members. There's other team members who might have access, but I'm the one who's going to be editing it right now. And it starts to launch. It says, it knows this is a docx. Box recognizes that. It recognizes that it should open it in Microsoft Word. I happen to have Microsoft Word installed on my machine, so it will open in there. Before I open it, though, right here I have an option to lock the file. So I have a few other teammates who have the same access I do. I don't want them to simultaneously be editing while I'm doing this, since I'm jumping over to Word for a second. So I can click that box to make sure that the box version stays locked while I work in Word and then come back. So I'm going to go ahead and click Continue, and then I make my edits and I save it. And what I end up with now is I've created a V2 of this document. And if I click on that V2, on the little blue V2 that's there, the one that only has one version, there's nothing showing there. As soon as you have multiple versions, you see that little graphic there, V2, V3, etc. If I click on V2, I see what the dialog to the right with the version history. So I can see that version 1 was at 2 p.m. by MaryBeth. Version 2 was at 2:20, so she made some minor change and saved a new version. And that's my current version, version 2. If there was some problem with that version, I can choose to make version 1 current by clicking Make Current. Yes?
Mary wants to know, is the edit in Word functionality automatic in Box, or do you have to download software to enable this functionality?
Yeah, it's automatic, but you have to have the application installed, correct?
Yeah, it's one of the apps that's available to you. So you do have to install the app. Once it's installed on the computer, it works in all browsers, so it doesn't have to be installed separately for the browsers. So, but yes, there is something you need to install, Box Edit.
Yeah, Box Edit. I'm sorry. So there's nothing special for Word, but there is a utility to jump over to the applications that can open these documents, right. And that utility is Box Edit.
Right.
Where would you get to that?
You can jump out to the browser if you want.
Well, why don't we get to that?
Okay.
Save that, and we'll come back to it. Rather than not jump. Okay, so. As I was saying, so if there was a problem with version 2, we can make version 1 current by clicking Make Current. All right, so oops. All right, so that was the end of scenario 1. Are there any questions about that particular scenario? I keep looking over because the person who's taking questions is slightly to my right. Just waiting a moment, okay. Where's the navigation to?
Click the cloud.
All right, so I'm going to go over to scenario 4. That was the next one that had that was at the top of your voting. So this is talking about shared accounts. One thing I want to say with shared accounts, some of our stuff on the web regarding shared accounts and a few of the things we're doing are being adjusted slightly. There will be a little bit more information, and we're making some changes. So keep an eye on the web pages, and keep an eye on the forum where you can we'll make announcements, because there will be some stuff that's changing a little bit with shared accounts. So it's just some additional information.
And I'd also like to add that if you have particular suggestions for how we could make shared accounts better, please let us know, because we are in the process of a project to make shared accounts better. So we'd love to hear from you.
And we'll provide contact information at the end of this.
We will.
Yeah. Okay, so scenario 4, shared accounts. So we're starting a project. There's lots of large files. We need lots of space, and we want people to collaborate on them. And so a person's going to request a shared account so they can have centralized and store all of this stuff with regard to this project. So that could be faculty, staff, student here. The project is a U of M project. The data belongs to U of M. It doesn't belong to individuals. And we want the people to be able to store and collaborate on those files. And we don't want them to take the data with them when they graduate or retire. So if someone's working on this and they created a particular file, we don't want that file to be owned by them and go away, or that folder to be owned by them and go away when they leave. So we want to put everything in the shared account. So there's information on requesting shared accounts and the nature of them. When you go to our M+Box page about your account, there's some information under shared M+Box accounts. A lot of details, how to request them, etc. You go in there, so requesting, logging in, and removing an account. So requesting, it gives you some information about what is appropriate for a name for the account, something about owners, etc. Logging in, go ahead, there's a question.
Lee wants to know what prevents someone from scraping the data from the view through screenshots or highlighting and copying.
Yes, there is nothing, virtually nothing in any system, even highly secure military systems, that prevents screen scraping, because I can always take a photograph of the screen. So if I have a device with me, I mean, you'd have to have total physical control of the room in order to prevent scraping. Anything that you can view, you have at least some access to, which means it's possible to scrape. So you can do a lot of things to make it difficult, but you cannot make it impossible. Now, if I have a 50-page report, it's a little awkward for someone to try to take a bunch of screenshots of that and splice it together, but nonetheless, I can't stop them from taking a photograph of the screen. So one of the things with, there's a bunch of information on requesting. With logging in, Box accounts, unlike Google accounts, you generally don't have to log in. We start with a shared folder that's created, and the owner is the person that requested it or what they specified, and that folder for the project, it's the one and only top-level folder in the shared account, and so the owner will see that folder. Anyone else that was added as an editor will see that folder, and you can change the permissions on that folder right from your account. So it shows up in your top-level directory. You can change things on that folder, so you really don't have to log into the account to make changes in the sharing on that folder. You can do it right from there. So you can use the folder and share it right from your account without logging into the actual Box account. So by default, you don't even get the password. You have to do a reset if you want to get the password and log into the account. And when the account is created, you get information that tells you exactly how to do that if you do need to do it for some reason. All right. I don't remember. Let me
just showing the owner and co-owner permissions.
Okay, so this project right here was M+Box team. We're looking at the folder M+Box team, and off to the right we can see, so that's the project, and off to the right is a list of collaborators. There's a M community group that's created as the owner, so M-Box team. That is what was listed as the owner here. And then we have the co-owners that are the actual people. So MaryBeth, myself, etc., are all the people that are working on this. Yes?
Lisa wants to know, can you share a folder with an individual that's outside of U of M with, say, a Yahoo email address, for example?
You can share with people outside the university, absolutely. And the Yahoo address doesn't matter. I mean, if they want to just be a view, like from the link types, if you're just viewing by a link, they don't necessarily have to have a Box account. Otherwise, they would have to create a Box account, but they would kind of be led through that if they didn't already have one, much like a U of M person would be led through that if they didn't already have one. So yes, you can definitely share with someone outside. Okay, actually,
Actually, it might be worthwhile to go into offboarding since there's a good linkage between that and shared accounts.
Okay, we have a little bit of time. So scenario 1 and scenario 4 were the top vote getters, but scenario 5 is very closely related. So I'm just going to jump right into it, as I did accidentally, and now I'll do it on purpose. So when someone's leaving, you don't want to make sure that you don't lose access to files that they have. Or they've changed positions, so maybe they shouldn't have the same access to team documents that they did before because now they're on a completely different team. And you want to make sure that the new person coming on has access to things that they need. So how do we do that? All right, so we have departing staff, we have the supervisor in the area, and we have the replacement coming on board. We are talking about the files and the folders related to that team, department, whatever. So we want to remove access for the person leaving, and we want to give access to the person coming in. And we don't want the departing person to still be able to access. Now, this will vary, but a lot of time, I mean, sometimes there needs to be a period, where you're still giving them some access, or sometimes it's very secure, and you need to immediately terminate their access. All right, so this is a little detail on what happens with the different ways people leave. So if someone leaves U of M and they're an alumni or retiree, there's a short period of time, and then their Box account is converted into a personal account. They retain everything that they own. In this scenario, if there was something that was accidentally, it was part of your department, but they had it in their account, it's now inside of a personal account, and that personal account is now outside of our domain, and we actually have no control over it. So we can't go back and get it for you without, we can't get it for you. So you really want to make sure before something would be converted to a personal account that you have access to it within like a shared account would be the best way. If someone leaves U of M and is not an alumni or retiree, then their account is inactivated. Here, the account is still within our enterprise, but they can't use it. However, if suddenly another member of the team notices a folder has disappeared, in this case, we can temporarily activate that account. They can make a copy of the folder that they need, so they can gain access. So in scenario 2, in the second bullet here, we still have access to the data. We can still restore access temporarily so that you can get the data. In the first one, once it leaves, we don't have any access to it. So it's very important, the distinction between those two. All right. And the main thing we say over and over and over again is about putting data in shared accounts. It's the best way to protect and control and maintain access to your data, to everything for your project. Let's see. Some of this you went through in the beginning slide.
Yeah.
A lot of this was in the slide that MaryBeth went over at the beginning. I'm going to skip a little bit. So if let's say, who is the one who's leaving in this scenario? Is it Bob that's leaving?
Harry.
Harry's leaving. So my name's Chris. Harry's leaving. I'm seeing that Harry was collaborating with me on stuff. So there's two ways that I can remove Harry. If I want to remove Harry from everything all at once, I go to the people icon up here and I search for Harry, and I see him show up. So there might be more than one Harry, but there it is, Harry retiree. That is the person I was looking for. And when I look, there's an option there. When I right click, I can remove them as collaborator. That's globally removing them as a collaborator on everything that I have. So with one click, I'll remove Harry from all of my stuff. And collaborative user leaving. So if I don't want to remove Harry from everything, let's say there's some personal stuff that we shared, or let's say there's some ongoing team activities that he needs to maintain access to, I can be more specific. Maybe I'm going to take him off the personnel folder or whatever. So I can go to a specific folder, navigate there. Now notice I'm in the folder section, not the people section. I can go to a particular folder, and then when I look over at the collaborators on the right, when I click on Harry, I can remove him. So that's removing him from this folder. If he has access to other folders, he'll maintain that. Now the person who's leaving may not want all this junk in their account. If their Box account is being converted to a personal account, they may want to not see any of this stuff anymore. So they can go to people, and let's say they don't want to see any more things from MaryBeth, that they've been collaborating on a bunch of stuff, but now that's done. So they go to people, they can search for, find MaryBeth, and they can remove them. Now they're removing MaryBeth from all of their stuff, all the places where they might have been collaborating by person. Similarly, if there's some things that are continuing and some things that are ending, they can go to folder, and they can go to the other person and remove them. Let's see, remove themselves. I'm sorry. So you have a folder that's a departmental folder, and you're a collaborator on it, and you just want to get yourself off of that folder. So you can go into that folder and remove yourself, and then you'll lose access to that folder. It won't show up in your list anymore. Now, if I'm the owner of a folder, I can actually give the ownership to someone else. So when I'm in the folder, so I'm the owner. If in this case I'm Harry. I'm the owner of this folder. I want to give it to MaryBeth because she's the one who needs to continue with this folder. I can click on MaryBeth and change her to owner, which will change me to an editor. So now she's the owner and I'm an editor. So I've backed out my collaboration. If I'm completely done, I can also remove myself so that I lose all access. But while I'm still an owner, I can give the ownership to someone else. So I can do that if I'm cleaning up as I'm leaving and trying to give permissions to the people who need them. All right. So
click that. Oh, actually, no, we were in the right place. Click that cloud again.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So that's the end of the scenarios. Probably as much time as we want to do for the scenarios, because we wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. I will go ahead and. Okay, good. And I will turn this back over to MaryBeth in case there's anything that you wanted to add.
No.
Okay. All right. So we'll entertain questions then.
They're coming.
All right. So here's information. There's the link to the Box website that has the information on sharing and everything else. Box has a support site where you can type in keywords and look for information. There's support there. So I'm Chris, and MaryBeth you saw at the beginning. So there's our email addresses. If you have a question or feedback for us, we'd be happy to hear from you.
They're typing.
We hear the sounds of typing virtually out in the world, but we haven't got a complete question yet. Okay, we have one.
Mary says it would be great, except it just disappeared, if the ITS roll-off document had links to how to remove yourself as a Box collaborator, owner, etc.
Well, that's a good suggestion.
Let's see, and another one is, I've heard you can share a folder with an M community group. Is access automatically updated as you add and remove users?
It is not dynamic. There's
You can't even do it.
Yeah, you can't. So there's when we initially create an account, there's a one-time transfer of who will be the owner and editors based on an M community group that's associated. That's one time. It's not dynamic. At Box right now, technically, we can't link it to M community, so we can't dynamically update the membership and the ownership based on the M community group.
And to add to that, the M community group is only used when setting up a shared account. As a user or as a collaborator in a folder, you cannot invite an M community group. That functionality is not there yet. Box is just starting to improve their group support, and we have some promises from them that it'll get better. And then once it is in a place where we can use it, we will be providing that functionality, but it's not there today.
Back to edit in Box question. Can you at the folder level make it so that all the files in the folder, that no one can edit any of the files in the folder at the same time?
You mean make sure that there's unique access, so only one person at a time? There is not a setting for that. If you open it, you would have to lock it yourself. One thing that I don't think we mentioned, and since we didn't cover the scenario that went through it, it's probably worth mentioning at this point, is that permissions in Box cascade down. So whatever permissions I have at the parent folder, I have to everything underneath. You can't remove my permissions lower down, but I can add people. So there could be 3 people at the parent level, and then the folder that's underneath could have 10 people that it's permitted to. And those, everything goes down. So if I have permission anywhere in the chain, I have that permission going further down into the chain. And that's, go ahead.
That's okay. Were you done?
Yes.
And would you go back to, where do you find that app so the document opens in the appropriate application?
Yeah, let's
you
go
wanna
back.
flip back?
Yeah. Hi, me again. So what I'm going to do is, well, one thing I'll point out is this presentation is actually being presented through Box Preview. So that's kind of cool. I mean, obviously this machine is set up with PowerPoint, and I could be using PowerPoint, but I don't need PowerPoint to do this because Box Preview supports it. So there you are. Now I'm going to go into just the regular thing, interface to the Box. This is the actual folder where I have where I did the screenshots for the various scenarios. So in the PowerPoint there is a link to be able to add yourself to this folder so that you can look at these yourself if you're interested. This cloud icon up here is what allows you to download apps, including Box Edit. And just a little foreshadowing, that icon is moving to underneath this gear icon soon. This is an enhancement, an interface change that's coming soon. It's not here yet, but it will be. So if you go to apps, and well, actually, it just so happens that it's displaying Box Edit there. We can go to Box Edit and download it. Well, maybe you should be able to do it from there. We can also just type in what it is we're searching for. Box has over 1,000 third-party applications that work with it. Now, Box Edit is not third-party. It's provided by Box. But if you go into Box Edit, and then you can download it. Now, here, it's already installed on this machine, so it gives you a remove button. But otherwise, it would give you a button to download it and install it. It will require administrator permissions to do the initial install, but then updates will be automatic and will not require administrator permissions. So if you have a machine that you don't have administrator permissions for, you may have to ask your IT group to download it for you or to load it on your machine for you.
I know we're getting close to time. There's just one. Can you suggest other useful apps?
There's a lot. It just totally depends on what you need to do. One thing that people have found useful is DocuSign, which allows you to do electronic signing of documents. That works with Box and works with single sign-on. Another one that's actually in the course with teamwork scenario is a nice app that allows you to set up a folder structure and then use that as a template, so then you can duplicate it in other create other folders with that same structure and including the collaborators on it. That could be useful in setting things up for teams. But just explore it. It just depends on what you want to do with Box. Also, our apps for all the mobile devices, those are really, really pretty great. I'd recommend you looking at those.
And a really quick one, does each individual person have to download the apps?
So it depends. So like for Box Edit, it installs it on the machine that you install it on. But some of the other ones will make your account, it installs into your account. So that makes your account able to use that app. Like I think DocuSign is one that's like that. So for example, I don't know, do we have time for me to show this? Okay. I will turn it over to Jean, but I just encourage you to explore the apps and try out them and see what's there, because there's a lot. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, MaryBeth and Chris. I'm going to stop sharing, get back to my little PowerPoint. Here we go. Get this go away. All right, so here's the link to today's presentation. Here's a link to the M+Box webpage, and the collaboration forum is where you can ask specific questions about M+Box and Google and things. So you'll find this session's recording on the IT4U page in my link, and because it's part of the collaboration series, you can see it without having to log in on the public web page, part of NextGen. And this is also one where we will caption it and put it on YouTube, so again you can watch that on your mobile device. That'll be up there and it'll be on that public web page. If you're not on my announcement list, you can sign up for that, and if you ever need additional help, you can contact the Service Center. So thank you very much for sticking around today. It sounds like we should bring MaryBeth and Chris back for another M+Box session. If you're here live, please do stay here for the polls. We're going to stop the recording now.